consideration a request that I, along with Representative Cummings and Duncan, penned to hold a hearing that could touch on school bus safety in light of the accidents that have been discussed here at Maryland and in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and others. In November 2016, these accidents occurred, 6 dead in Baltimore and 6 dead in Chattanooga. 31 passengers injured, 6 school-age children were taken. Too early is not the right term. They were taken, and that was wrong. No more precious cargo is there for any commercial carrier than children, school-age children, entrusted by their parents to go and get educated, to have a better life. The NTSB has had ongoing investigations of these accidents and cannot answer questions directly related to each case. I understand that. But in both cases, it seems there were a number of safety precautions and oversight issues that could have prevented or mitigated the risk of injuries and fatalities suffered from the unfortunate events. Having said that, I want to ask a few questions of Ms. Denbar. In 5 reports since 2010, including accident investigations involving school bus crashes in Anaheim, Chesterfield, New Jersey, Knoxville, Houston, Texas, and Gray Summit, Missouri, the NTSB made several observations in which it concluded that compartmentalization was not enough to prevent all injuries, particularly in accidents involving side impact or high-speed rollover. Yet on your website, the NTSB states that it believes and recommends that new school buses should provide children with 3-point seat belts. A, does this recommendation still stand? Can you elaborate how the NTSB came to the conclusion that compartmentalization was an insufficient safety mechanism? And when can we expect the investigations in Chattanooga and Baltimore crashes to be released? And those are my questions for you.
Thank you, Congressman.
You're welcome.
Cohen. I appreciate your asking those questions because school bus crashes are always some of the hardest for us to investigate, but obviously very important to make sure that our children get to school safely. Some of the issues you mentioned that we can't speak specifically about the investigation, but that we are looking into is medical fitness as well as screening of drivers in school buses. You mentioned the 3-point seatbelt, lap shoulder harness seatbelt recommendation. That still does stand. We are recommending that states and school boards, as they buy new school buses, buy buses that have this type of better restraint system. And the reason is, in our crash reconstruction and our investigations, we found that there are certain types of crashes, such as a rollover crash or a side impact crash, where having a 3-point seatbelt is very important. I should say that school buses are very safe vehicles. It's much safer for a child to go to school in a school bus than almost any other vehicle. But the compartmentalization, while it is an important tool for safety in the school bus, it primarily helps with forward-type collisions. So that's why that 3-point seatbelt still stands.
Your statement, you said that you would states should consider when purchasing new buses. Have you thought of anything stronger than consider in mandating, since it is such an important safety element that you have endorsed and found studies? And I've got 5 reports on school bus investigations that I want to enter into the record where they all say that school seatbelts would have saved children's lives.
We certainly will consider it, and as these, as the investigation for these 2 November school bus crashes occur, we'll again consider how the wording goes. In the past, we have always attempted to balance being very prescriptive with the feasibility of some of our recommendations, but we'll certainly take your comments under consideration.
I hope so. I've been working on this since the 90s, and I've always had school boards against it. They don't want to spend the money, and the money should come secondary to the safety. I would like to introduce for the record without objection these 5 reports that all indicate that school seatbelts on school buses would save lives. Dollars shouldn't be the issue with our precious cargo. There's some other issues I've dealt with, and I only have a few seconds left, but I want to ask this. Are there any recommendations any of y'all have on graduated driver's licenses, how we should try to improve those laws in the states, and or ignition interlock laws for multiple DUI offenders?
Sir, for all of our national priority programs that are kind of on the newer side, there is a period of time that it takes for states to comply, and graduated driver's license is the biggest example of this. We have 0 states who are eligible for these programs. NHTSA is going to work with these states to try and get them eligible. Congress sort of relaxed some of the standards that states still aren't there, but we've seen over time, particularly with our more mature priority programs, that states do come along and they do work. The strong laws that Congress requires under the FAST Act do work over time in terms of saving lives, and we've seen it with occupant protection. In 2016, for the first time, our seatbelt usage nationwide went over 90%. And that's largely because of the strong laws required under the authorizations at Congress. So we don't want to discourage lowering the standards too much. We take it on ourselves to try and work with the states to provide technical assistance to get them to where they need to be in order to have strong laws on the books.
Before I yield back the time that I don't have, I just want to thank you for what you've done. I passed a seatbelt law in Tennessee 15 years ago, and Jim Hall worked with us closely on that. I appreciated his support and hope you all will keep up the standards, because it was difficult to get the standards in there to say kids couldn't use cell phones or kids had to put on their seatbelts or the number of passengers and all that. And ignition interlock is something else we worked on back then. And for multiple DUI offenders, they ought to be able to do the Constitution backwards. I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Barletta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.